All right. So we're sitting down in the lovely Columbus, Georgia, in the loft. Thank to Josh Powers who lined this up in the studio. From what I've heard, Willie Nelson's recorded here. A few other country music singers have done it as well. So if the studio looks a little bit different, that's why this isn't our new studio. I wish it was, but maybe we'll be using it going forward. But we have, and this is a long time. We've been wanting to sit down for a while. We're sitting down with Sergeant Major retired Mike Albaugh. If you don't know Mike, he joined the Army in 1996 at the ripe old age of 27 years old. Uh, Initially went to Seco 375, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
Seco 375, spent a total of 28 years in service. Uh, was the 18th Regimental Sergeant Major of the 75th Ranger Regiment. Also did command after the regimental time. One of the, I don't want to say you were one of the first, but one of the first ones that I was really kind of, tried to emulate that went immediately into a nominative position after your regimental time and went over to Special Operations Command, Africa. And I had a total of 17 deployments. So, Mike, sorry that it's been kind of a rigmarole the last couple days, but we finally get to sit down. We were down here for an amazing week for Ranger Hall of Fame, but it's an absolute honor to sit down with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. Been watching the podcast for some time and a lot of great guests and stuff on there. So hopefully I can add something to what so many great people have added so far.
Oh, you're gonna add a ton. So let's start at the beginning. You had almost what some could consider like a whole life, and then all of a sudden you decided to be an airborne ranger. What was the genesis behind all that?
Yeah, so I did come in, so got out of the high school, went right into just working, bounced around for a bunch of different jobs. So worked, as a mechanic for quite some time. My father was a mechanic. My mom worked in the government at various jobs, and I just kind of bounced around at different things. I went to college for a little bit, was going to be a police officer, and I always kind of had in the back of my mind this idea of the military, right? So I wouldn't mind doing military service. What would I do? And as I started to get around like 25, 26, I just wasn't finding what I wanted to do out there. The police route looked like it was going to take, a lot more than time that I really wanted to put into it. I really wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to do. So I started really thinking about, hey, maybe it's time. Maybe I just go into the service, do a few years, and just like the rest, like all of us have listed, right? Like I'm gonna go in, do a few years, get some college money, come out. Now I found, got some discipline and some things, and move on with my life. And then I started thinking about, well, if I do it, what do I want to do? And I started thinking about, the Rangers. Now I didn't know there wasn't a lot out. So this is the mid to late '90s, right?
Yeah, it was
Is
like
There's
what
no
what
internet, there's no
that hot
YouTube.
air. That's like all we had. Yeah.
Right, there's not a whole lot about Rangers out there, but I had just heard, you hear things about, hey, in the Army, there's these guys called the Rangers, and they're kinda at the tip of the spear, they're kinda like, do the dangerous missions, it's challenging, and I thought, well, I wanna do something of some significance, right? I wanna make my time in the Army, kinda mean something, so I think I wanna try to do that. So I found a little information. I don't come from a military background, so I didn't really have a lot of military people to talk to. A couple people I was able to talk to told me a few things, but it was a lot of discovery learning on my own. So I went into a recruiter's office, told him that I wanted to go into the Rangers. Guy was like, that's some tough stuff. And I'm like,
Really?
he's like, but if you want to do it, we can get you there. And I was kind of off. And I found out what the option 40 contract was. You get a Ranger contract guaranteed, get through basic, you go to airborne, you go to RIP, and then you go to a Ranger battalion. So I signed up for the Ranger contract, kind of delayed entry. It was like spring of '96. And then in the fall of '96, I ended up coming down here to Fort Benning and going into basic training.
So your basic training experience, obviously back then we were going through airborne school before we went to RIP. Um, what was that like being a little bit older? Do you think your experience varied in comparison to other guys, that are much younger, that come in?
Yeah, a little bit. So I went to Bravo 119 right here on Fort Benning, right?
Yeah.
And they actually put most of us who had RIP contracts at the time in one platoon. And I don't know if it was by design or how they did it, but they put most of us, and there was about a half a dozen guys who were around my age or a little bit younger. So I wasn't surrounded by just a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds. There was actually a few mature guys in there with a little bit of time, had done some things on the outside like me and came in late. So that was it really wasn't it. I didn't find honestly, I didn't find basic training, not kind of growing up as an athlete myself, but kind of I didn't find it that hard. I mean, it was challenging, right?
Right.
But it wasn't. I didn't. At no point did I think I don't think I can do this,
Yeah,
right?
I share the
Yeah,
same sentiment.
yeah. I mean, I think of course, being older and kind of going through, the silly things that go into basic training
Right.
tries your patience. But I thought, for the most part, the physical stuff, the mental, I was okay, and I was surrounded. It was good that I was surrounded by other like-minded individuals who wanted to be rangers as well.
Yeah,
So.
that's awesome. So, did you did you feel differently when you went through RIP though? Because I've shared this, a few times. Like when I went through RIP after the first kind of 2 weeks, and the third week you're gonna be doing a lot of other stuff. That was the first time, like physically and mentally, I felt like, oh wow, I'd actually accomplished something, and I felt like, okay, now I have something that is setting me apart from everybody else that joins the army, so to speak.
Yes. Get done airborne school. And everybody's fearful of what the unknown is with RIP, right? You hear all the horror stories and my experience is probably much like yours and everybody else's, right? You get done airborne school, you pack your bags, you're standing out there and they're like waiting for the Rangers to come get you. And they all show up, and they tell you, they could call the roster, they tell you to throw all your bags on the truck, and then you get behind the truck and then they run you up top of the hill.
Right.
And at the time, now it was it became a park, and which is just a big open field at the time that we ended up marching into. And now I think it was a parking lot. Now I think they put like an outside piece out there where they do ceremonies. Anyway, they bring us out there and they march us around a little bit. Nobody scuffed you up or anything at this point, and then they stop us and they're like, "Who wants to quit?" And like six people raise their hand. And I was like and they were like, "Why do you wanna quit?" And you're like, "I don't think it's for me, sir." And they're like, "You haven't done anything. How do you know it's not for you?"
Yeah.
And I kind of felt at that moment, I don't know if it's for me, but I think I wanna do something a little bit different in the Army, right? I wanna kinda be a part of an organization that's a little bit smaller, hold standards, that kind of thing. So these people they go away and we kinda get together and we I was a holdover for a couple weeks waiting for the next cycle to go through. And this was the 3 weeks of RIP, right? And this was February of '97. So it was, cold down here.
Yeah.
I think the RIP class that was finishing up graduated like 12 Rangers in that class. It was, one of the smallest classes. So it didn't instill a lot of confidence for those like, "Oh, man, they only graduated 12." So, I think our class started, I wanna say less than 100. They were small classes back then,
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
and, I don't know when we graduated, maybe 40 or 45, but I felt like after the first 2 weeks, like you said, like, the first 2 weeks were the toughest, and
Yeah.
then the 3rd week is kind of, getting your equipment and kinda, fine tuning
Like
you.
Ranger history test.
Yeah, and that kind of
See.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I felt like, it was tough, but it was attainable,
Yeah.
right? Like I think all my group, who most of them had come with me through basic, and we all kind of gone through the pipeline together, like the Mark Holdens, a guy named
Mark.
DeBowl,
Yeah.
Deshane Greaser, uh, uh, Wilson, Bob Wilson, just a bunch of guys that ended up going to the different battalions. And I think we all kind of shared the common belief of like it was tough, but it was definitely doable. It wasn't impossible.
Right.
We all felt pretty good about ourselves that we kind of made it to that point at
That's
the
awesome.
end.
So, you graduate RIP and you go to Charlie Company 375. And I love Charlie Company 375 because it's one of those companies, when we talk about that time period, that just was packed with greatness. It really, really was a company that went on to shape the regiment, not only in actions, combat actions as well as we talk about the GWOT, but then also how many leaders came out of there.
Yeah.
So, but talking about your arrival to the company, what was that? What was that like? Being a little bit older, a little bit more maturity, probably clarity, a little bit less severe than maybe some of us. I don't want to speak for you, but what was that? What was that like arriving for when you finally donned that black beret and walked through the gate, and now you're a airborne ranger?
Yeah, it felt really good, but you also realize you still have a lot to prove,
Right.
right? Like you get there. and you quickly realize that you haven't arrived, right? You'd arrived, physically, but like you still got a long way to go and a lot of things to prove. So, I got there. It was four of us who went to Charlie Company three. Say we all went to 375, and there was four of us that went to Charlie Company, and two of us went. Me and a friend Stanley Majaka went to second platoon, and they roll out at the range, right? Like worst case, like your platoon is out at the range doing stuff, and you're the new guy waiting for him to come back at 10, 11 o'clock at night, right? And they all come back in and they get us up and they take us down to platoon sergeant, which was John Burns, right? So I saw him this week here at Ranger Hall of Fame, right? And then he assigns me to weapons squad, and my first squad leader was Brian Organo, that you just had on the show, right? So Sergeant G was my first squad leader,
Wow.
and yeah, and, he was in weapons squad leader, so I went right to weapons squad, and a couple guys, Bill King and, Butler and a guy, Buck Lou, and there was a group of us in a weapons squad, and I remember all the fire team leaders. So, I mean, I remember all, like, somebody said in the
Yeah,
Ranger
Pip
Hall of
said it
Fame,
today. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you remember all those first squad leaders,
Yeah, that's
platoon
true.
sergeants,
It's what he said that
instantly
guy was like, yeah,
you
yeah.
do, you remember all of them, right, and the impact that they had on you. So, it was a great platoon, it was 2nd platoon, and, I stayed in that platoon from just all the way up to being a platoon sergeant, before I did to squad leader, and then I went over to 3rd platoon, but I stayed in Charlie Company most of my time. So, the first night, it's always, scary as hell, right? And these were the old barracks.
Yeah.
These were the old barracks where there was no escape, right?
I almost kind of like forget what those barracks look like. It was so long ago, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so the hallways, they're all inside, and the platoon bay is, it's where you live and work every day, right?
Right.
So far different than what it is today. So, but it was good. It was a great bunch of guys, and definitely that was definitely a molding time in my, this is my first introduction to really being a ranger and being really part of the organization.
Well, that's awesome. So, how long were you in Ranger Regiment before you went to Ranger School?
I was there about a year, and then I went. Didn't make it the first time, came back, got heat casualty the second time. So like I had this like Ranger School Odyssey where I just kind of had to go.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't an easy path for me. And then, so I just didn't give up. Right. And I remember telling Sergeant G, when I came back and I got a pretty good heat casualty too. Like in the middle of the day, they forced march us somewhere.
Yeah.
And I knew at the end of it that something wasn't right. Like I was really sick. Um, and I remember when I came back, I told him, Sergeant was so disappointed, and I was disappointed in everybody. And I just said, "Hey, like, I'm not gonna like as soon as I get well, I'm gonna go back, right? And I'm just not going to quit and do this." He's like, "Okay." And sure enough, he sent me back a few months later, when it got cooler, and I stayed and I recycled. And I remember telling the commander down at, RS 6 RTB, so it's a two-time recycle. Recycled in mountains, recycled in Florida. And he's like, "I'm gonna drop you to send you back." I'm like, "Sir, I just need to get through Ranger School. Like, I'm not gonna learn how to do this if you send me back. Like, I need to stay in Ranger School and get my tab.
Right.
Like, and I'm gonna knock it out the next time I come through." He's like, "Well," he sent me back, to brigade, and the brigade commander ended up sending me and about half a dozen back to Florida, and I was able to finish.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you had a little bit of a Ranger
Oh, yeah,
School
yeah.
odyssey. What would be your advice to somebody, if before they go to Ranger School and all of a sudden they find themselves in this odyssey of trying to get
You
to
just keep you just keep grinding away at it and not give up. Like, you just don't let Ranger School get the best of you.
Yeah.
I would tell you, I used to tell this to kinda like, the Ranger, guys getting ready to go to pre-RASP and Ranger School when I was a battalion sergeant major, and even as a first sergeant. I'm like, "I'm telling you, like, it's not gonna be easy, and it's gonna suck, and, like, you're gonna get recycled, and you're gonna get discouraged, and you're gonna wanna stop, but I'm telling you, when you stand out there at Victory Pond, and your family and friends are, like, surrounding you, and they're pinning that Ranger tab on you, it will be the best feeling of your life.
Yeah.
Like, it will not like, you probably it's probably my 1 or 2 most memorable times of my life was getting my Ranger tab. So, just stick with it.
Stick with it. Yep, that's good advice. Um, so crazy. Trenton, the uh, executive director of the National Ranger Association, brought me my green card from Ranger School today.
Oh, and they're kidding.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that that still existed. Apparently, they're still in the archives. So he brought me like a transcript of it, and I got to see, like my go rate, all this different kind of stuff for getting my green card. It was pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
I just, I had some bad luck. right, along the way at different phases and different points, and then all of a sudden I get back into it, and I did well and got to go, and it kept moving along. But I would tell you, like, there's plenty of us out there who, like, I mean, I can remember there was certain people who, like, you would go on deployment and they were going to pre-ranger and going, and then you come back from deployment and they were still in ranger school, and you got back, and then you deployed again and got home and they were just getting back from ranger school. Like, there's just some guys I've seen spend 9, 12 months in ranger
Yeah.
school, right? And that's some perseverance for sure.
Yeah, 100% is.
Yeah.
I sent a kid to ranger school and he spent I think like 15 days shy of 12 months.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like you can wear 2 ranger taps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you come back from Ranger School, and did you go back to Weapons Squad, or
No, so Sergeant Jesse Andert was the platoon sergeant at the time. So I went over to line squad and took a fire team.
okay?
So worked for Chad Carpenter, was my squad leader,
Okay.
and Brian Strait was the other team leader, good friend of mine. And then I stayed in the platoon through team leader, and then I ended up moving over to third platoon to be a squad leader for Sergeant Syrie. Kurt Donaldson was over there at the time. So Kurt and I, and Adam Nash, we were all in Charlie Company together.
Yeah.
My
My
father
father talked about that
Yeah.
today. Yep.
And we were kind of growing up, kind of moving through the ranks together. So Adam was in first platoon as a squad leader, and I was me and Donnie were in third. And then I did my time there, made E7, and then ended up going back to second platoon to be a platoon sergeant there,
Oh, so all in Charlie Company.
all in Charlie Company.
Wow.
With a little bit of staff time, Matt Walker pulled me over between E6 and E7 to work the S2.
Oh,
and
Sergeant
obviously,
Walker.
yeah,
No
Sergeant Major
kidding?
Walker.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was
So
on
I just
PS11.
wanna yeah, I just wanna make sure it was the same.
Yes, Matt Walker. Yeah. So he pulled me over there to be the NCOIC for the S2 for a rotation, and then I came back to Charlie Company, and then I finished out my time.
What would catch us up on time? What year is this now?
So this is '05
Oh.
to '07 was my hard strike platoon sergeant time, and I did a little bit one deployment as an E6 promotable back in second platoon before I went to staff, just because they didn't have PLs, and they did a big shifting of people around, and
Right.
I ended up that's when Nick Bielik had taken over for Sergeant Pippin, and they had to do some piece. So I went over with James Anderson.
Oh,
Right.
wow. Yeah, it's the
platoon-
he was
yeah.
my ops sergeant major at
That's
the
right.
7 Bonds.
So went over. So James was the actual platoon sergeant for 2 Charlie at the time. So he played PL, and I was the platoon sergeant, and then we kind of deployed, and that's when we went to Ramadi for a rotation. Early '04, like the first year before it got to first year of the invasion of Iraq.
Okay. We should definitely want to come back and talk about some of those names in a little bit, and some of those individuals and the first deployments as well. But after your platoon sergeant time, is that when you went to HRC to be NCO?
It is.
Or I'm sorry, to be the Ranger Branch NCO.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think when I met you and Balad in '07, early '07, when we switched out, that was my first.
Right.
Yeah. So when we switched out in Balad January of '07, I'd already been selected, already kind of volunteered to go up to HRC, which was still in Alexandria, Virginia. So right before they went to
That's
Knoxville.
right. Yeah. Okay. Or
Fort
Fort
Knox.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Definitely Alexander over Fort Knox all day long. Yeah.
yeah. So I went, so I had been selected for kind of volunteered, kind of selected for that. I'd been watching that job for some time, and I knew people who had been in that job. Chuck Alberson was in that job.
Right. He actually had went to that right before he was my platoon sergeant.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Rob Nichols was in that job.
yeah.
Shane Gore, who I replaced, was in. So I knew some people in the job, and it was I'm from the Maryland, DC area. So it put me closer back home to my family for a couple years, gave me a little bit, and it kind of interested me to do something a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
So I ended up taking that job and leaving for that the summer of '07, and went up there for 2 years.
Nice. What was that experience like, and why would you recommend that people do that?
It was a great, so a little bit of a culture shock, right? So you're coming from like being a hard charging 11 Bravo Ranger. Now you're sitting behind a desk doing assignments, right? And it was a little bit, surrounded by people aren't quite like-minded like you are. And the fact that, uh, they just don't come kind of from the culture that we come from. Great people, but it's
Yeah.
just a little bit different, right?
Right.
So But it was good, and I recommended it, so a few people that I've known have followed me, like Patrick Hartung went and did it, and
Oh,
others
yeah.
have got
Oh, did
going.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. He did. Yeah.
when I was the RSN, he was up there, and it was good because I learned how the Army did assignments,
Yeah.
right? Like how they move people around and what are priorities and what aren't, and all the different branches. And when I went up there, I knew like four MOSs,
Yeah.
like 11 series, 13 series, and maybe 25s, right? And that was it. And when I got up there, the regiment had just expanded, and now we were at like 53 or 57 MOSs at the time. We've done the big expansion. So I had to learn all those and then learn kind of the layout of HRC and the different branches because in the L&O job that the regiment puts up there, you're kind of a voice for regiment for all those different MOSs and all those people to their branch managers. And within the branches, they also have i- it's divided between the branches, and then within the branch, it's one branch manager manages the E5s and E6s for 92 golfs,
Right.
or all the 92 series, and then it kind of goes up from there from rank. She's kind of all these different personalities and everything. It was a great learning experience, and it definitely helped me as I came back to battalion
Yeah.
to be a first sergeant, to be a CSM, on how to navigate the assignment process.
Yeah. No, it was I'll share a little bit about that, as we kind of get going about how that knowing individuals that did that, that were leaders of mine, mentors of mine, helped me later on when I was a CSM.
Doug Pallister did it.
Yep, Doug Pallister did it as well. Yeah, that's another good one. So come back from HRC and you went what battalion did you go back to?
So I went to 1st Battalion. So I was, slated to go back to 3rd Battalion. I still had a house there.
Yeah.
Was ready. I was going to move back in my house. The whole, I did my own assignment back to 375. I mean, it was, that's where I was going to go. And there were some changes of leadership. There was some internal changes at 175, and they needed an ops sergeant major for interim time until they were able to bring somebody in. And so, Sergeant who was the RSM at the time, Chris Hardy, who was my first sergeant with Mike Foster, back in Seco in the day, was like, "Hey, are you interested in going to 175?" I was like, I just kind of want to go back to 375. It's what I know. I'm
Yeah.
comfortable.
Yeah.
And here's all of these things, right? I kind of had the rest of my career mapped out at 375. And he's like, "Well, I think I could get you in a first sergeant job faster if you go to 175. And if you can't do it, I understand. I have other options." So I waited. And honestly, like I respect him. He's probably one of the most influential people that, has been in my career. And I was like, I'm not gonna. I told my wife at the time, I'm not gonna say no. I think we should do this.
Yeah.
So I called and said, "Okay, we're gonna do it." So I changed, and so Nick Billick had just gone down there and taken over from Dennis Smith. So
Mm.
he was so Nick had been my first sergeant, he'd been the ops sergeant major 375. I mean, and I was going to go work for him at 175, who's another huge influence on my career.
Yeah.
So I went down there. Adam Nash had already gotten down there and taken over ACO, and Kurt Donaldson was on his way down there, and who would take over DECO shortly after he got there. So I had a couple of my friends who went there as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop us real quick. We're at the 20-minute mark, so I just want to encourage everybody listening. This is a preview with Sergeant Major Mike Albaugh. If you want to listen to the rest of the episode, I really encourage you to become an exclusive member through our Patreon app. Not only we get access to the entire episode for this one, but the 80 plus other episodes that we have and a lot of the exclusive content that's coming out. One of which is will be coming out in the near future is the Best Ranger competition and the documentary that we're making for that, and then also the Ranger Hall of Fame documentary we're making. So definitely help us out and help our efforts to capture and preserve Ranger history by becoming an exclusive member.